Okay, we're calling the meeting to order at 5:36. This is the special meeting of the Flood and Erosion Control Board on November 26th. And in attendance are the following. This is Becky Bunnell, Chair. If everyone could go around and please state your name and position.
I'm Dick Mahusky, and I'm the Secretary.
Paul Andino, Member.
I'm Prue O'Brien, Recording Secretary.
Okay, so we do have a quorum. We are missing two of our members. We are hoping Peter will join. He said he would, but since we do have a quorum, why don't we go ahead and do some administrative things, if that's okay. The first item would be to hear and consider the minutes of September 20th meeting. Did anyone have any comments or suggested edits for those minutes?
This is Dick. I have no comments, and I would make a motion that they be accepted as submitted.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are so approved. So the next item we had, I guess we should go ahead then, and Peter will just join us when he can, and if we have to go back, we can. The next agenda item was a discussion on the flood, the resiliency fund. We had wanted to send a letter recommending a resiliency fund to the Board of Selectmen for their consideration and offer to come share our opinion with them in a future meeting. So I had sent around a draft of one version that we had done a while ago. I think I'd made some small edits, and I think Dick may have made some small edits to it. But did everyone get a chance to look at that? And are there any recommendations or edits that would be suggested?
This is Dick. The one you sent around just today, Becky, that's the one that I had made a couple of small annotations on.
I think that was your exactly.
That's my right. That's my suggestion.
Yeah.
Is that the one you want to consider, or you want to go back one step, or?
No, I think we should. I'm happy to consider your edits and
okay.
Have that be the one.
So then I would make a motion that the board approve this letter with the edits and authorize our chairwoman to send that to the Board of Selectmen, so that we can finally get this topic off and into discussion with them. So that's my motion.
Paul, did you get a chance to review that by any chance?
I didn't, but I'd be okay. I did, I looked at an earlier version, but I'm all right with it.
The changes are so minor. They're like,
I'm
more than anything.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah. The only thing that I wasn't sure about was I sort of put all the whereas stuff in there. I'm sort of thinking we should take that out and just leave the floodplain nature conservancy map in there. In other words, just do it as the letter.
I think you included that originally so that they'll have something to put on the agenda for when they authorize this, they being starting with Board of Selectmen, going to Board of Finance, going to RTM, and they can certainly rewrite it in the appropriate form with the right whereases or whatnot, but I think it's fine to include that.
You do?
Okay. That's expanding on what we would like to see our town adopt.
Okay, all right, then I'm fine on leaving that in. I just wasn't sure what, and I also had a second appendix, which was the bill itself.
Right. No, I think that's fine to leave all that in there myself.
All right. I'm fine on that if you don't think if that's appropriate. So let's then. Do I have Dick, I'm sorry. Did you just say that you had a motion to accept?
I made the motion to authorize the chairwoman to send this letter as edited to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, and then Paul did.
I'll second it. Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, then I will go ahead and make those edits a permanent edit then, and send that forward.
There's just one additional edit that I just spotted here, Becky. Back toward the closing, it says this request and proposal were approved by unanimous vote of our board at our 11:15 meeting. It's actually the 11:02 meeting where a quorum was present. So that date needs to be changed.
And I'll change the date of the letter too, because it says November 15th.
Date of the letter too. Yes.
Yeah, so I'll change it to those.
Okay.
Okay, then I had, Dick, thank you for catching that. I had sent out the original thank you to Tom Bremer note, which obviously was not the one that you had drafted, but you did send out the second note. So, Paul, I don't know if you got a chance to read that. Let me give you some background on that letter. Or let me actually move to the next agenda item, which I think this might be, is Penfield, right? Is Penfield the next agenda item? Yes.
Yes. Item number 4, discussion on evolving plans for Penfield Pavilion rebuild.
So, Paul, let me give you a little bit of background on this. So Dick and I had met with Tom Bremer actually a while ago, and the letter I erroneously sent was our thank you to him for meeting with us, because we want to get an update on where the Penfield Pavilion project stood, the rebuild project, and what they were proposing to do to meet the FEMA notice of violation. And he explained that their current best approach that they were planning on taking was to basically leave the pavilion in place and dig out each section by section and remove the remove the fill, which and go in and remove the grade beam, which was what the notice of violation was. And then my understanding was they were going to have a coastal engineering firm come back with a recommendation on whether to reinforce the piles that the building stands on or replace the grade beam at a lower level, but something that would meet with FEMA standard and eliminate the notice of violation. So that's what they were proposing doing. So going section by section under each section of piles one at a time, removing the contaminated fill, testing to make sure it's clean, and then removing the grade beam that was built as part of that. Dick and I expressed a concern that this lower would result more flooding for the neighborhood behind it. We also expressed a concern that it might also jeopardize the previously approved engineered beach study, because all those elevations were done and approved by DEEP, at least. I'm not sure they ever got approved by Army Corps, but they were definitely approved by DEEP, and we didn't want to jeopardize that. So we so we asked them to consider how would they mitigate future flooding now that this will basically act as a funnel for water that will be channeled through the higher elevations between Rickards Dune and the Jackie Durrell Pavilion, will be channeled through this now low-lying land, if you will, back through the parking lot into the neighborhood behind. So when they put out their RFQs and RFPs, they did actually put in a note that they were planning on having a resilience measure be part of the project, or at least that is the way we understand that. And so the letter that Dick drafted is basically just reiterating, that this is a very important part of the project, needs to be part of the project, not an afterthought. That there be some resilience measure, such that now that we are lowering the elevation, we are not putting at risk, several thousands of houses behind the pavilion.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what the letter is and says. Dick, do you want to add anything to that?
The only other thing I would add is that, and Paul, you're aware, the Fairfield Beach Residents Association sent out a communication about this topic also. And in that communication, it says that the FBRA and FECB are aware of the reduction in the...
Unknown caller.
I'm sorry.
Hello? Hello.
Go ahead, Dick.
Still here.
So they said that we're concerned about that, and this letter from FECB is just to go on record to support that that statement that yes, we are concerned about this, and this and the other thing that I tried to do here was to recognize that the pavilion itself and clearing the FEMA's notice of violation is job one on this project, but there's also a job two. Hello? There's also a job too, which is to improve the resiliency for the neighborhood beyond. So that's what I tried to say in this letter. And we're copying.
No, I
Go
get
ahead, Paul.
that, and I think I think the letter is well taken, and I think I have no problem supporting, Dick, your position, and Becky's representation as well. So I'm surprised that it's even at the point it's at without consideration of what's behind the pavilion. So.
No, they're. I mean, I don't want to mischaracterize. They're between Tom Bremer, and you'll see that Elias Ghazal is copied on this. He is the project engineer that works for Bill Hurley, so they are aware of this aspect of it. And I did have a conversation with Elias, and he said yes, we are aware of that, and they consciously put that statement in the RFQ because they do intend to consider restoring the resiliency, and I maybe putting words in his mouth said improving the resiliency for the neighborhood beyond. So it's not that they're ignoring it. It's just they're concentrating on first things first, which is hard enough to do.
And I think it would be great if they represented. It would seem to me that in response to the letter that they give us some examples of even future plans. Obviously, this is not for tomorrow, but that it has to be built into the overall plan. So while you've gotten an expression of interest and support, I'm hopeful that the department will come back to you reinforcing the notion that those measures will be undertaken.
Yeah, and that's, again, it's a step-by-step, so what they have to do, and that's why these two topics are linked in that one sentence that they put in the RFQ, coastal engineering and flood impact studies. So that has to be done to understand what the storm surge and wave action will do under the pavilion, but it also morphs into the engineered beaches aspect of it, and also the flood protection. If you recall, because I think you were involved back during the Penfield rebuild, Race did a presentation of I think it was 7 specific measures that could be taken at the Penfield property to provide flood resistance, resiliency, flood prevention, flood mitigation, whatever terms you want to use, at the Penfield site. So this is just a new iteration of that type of study to see what might be appropriate. The other thing is that we now know that DEEP has no appetite at all for a geotube on the beach or something similar on the beach. So that's why in this letter I suggest raising the roadway, putting a flood wall at the roadway, or whatever, however I.
I was around at the time when things were rebuilt, but I'm a little. I'll tell you, I'll raise my only concern is, and maybe it's not the case, but we could get lost in studies, and we could have a breach in. If they go forward and fix the violation without at least a temporary measure, I think it puts us in a position, and it puts us in a position concerned about how long the problem exists.
Yeah,
Paul,
yeah.
I think
we're at risk until.
I think we addressed that because I think, and I feel I agree with you 100% that we need to get this not just the study part, but the design and construction need to be basically put into the plan. So in the note, it says that the detailed design and construction should be in the FY24 capital plan. Fairfield cannot wait until the next storm Sandy has come and gone. So I think maybe I can go back and we could rewrite that just a little more clearly, that we don't want it in the 5-year waterfall capital plan. We actually want the design and construction to be budgeted for and agreed to in the 2024 fiscal year. So maybe it shouldn't be planned, it should be fiscal year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would totally agree with that. Because, our luck, there's a storm, and, I've already seen some notes circulate, but, I think we as long as we address it in that, it's part of an upcoming fiscal budget that I think it'll put pressure on gaining results of those studies sooner rather than later. But at least it builds a stopgap, in no pun intended, in the possibility of the throughway of water not being mitigated.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I tried to convey with that last paragraph, that we need to do this now. And again, recognizing that you have to take it one step at a time so that you can show the regulators you've done your due diligence, etc. So the coastal engineering study and the flood impact study need to be done now with the current funding for the Penfield repair, and then as they are now working on setting the fiscal year 24 capital plan, they need to include monies for the actual detailed design and construction.
Right.
Not in, again, to Becky's point, not 4 years out on the waterfall chart, but now.
Right.
Right. So
I'm good with that.
The wording, if that's okay, to fiscal year. That makes it clear that it's not the plan, which the plan could be conceived of as the waterfall by people who want to hear it that way. But it is our request is that it be put into the fiscal year.
Fiscal year 24 capital budget. How about that? Capital budget. Change plan to budget.
Well, they could also conceive that as a 5-year budget because it is a waterfall.
No, the fiscal year 24 capital budget is for fiscal year 24, which starts in July 1st of 20.
Well, I'll just add the word fiscal year capital budget then. Yeah.
So
when is the work
interrupt for one?
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Just a quick question. Go ahead.
I'm afraid that this is not recording because I hit it. It said record, and it said that the meeting is now recording. But I'm looking at this record button, and it's still saying if I hover over it, record. So can I click it now and see what happens? I don't understand why it stopped recording.
It started.
It was recording. Okay, sorry. It just doesn't tell me that it's recording.
You just toggled it. You toggled it on and off, right? Or off and on.
Off and then back on. So we're good. I'm sorry. I'm going back away.
Can we be any, Becky, just a quick question. Can we be any more definitive in defining a timeline by which the construction or the correction, the construction correction aligns with a mitigation request? Even though we know we're going to have to be flexible with the outcome, I think us sending a very strong message about the need to protect the neighborhood leaves the town in an uncomfortable position that they need to be aggressive about this.
Yeah. So maybe, Paul, to that, maybe we can add a sentence that says, we think it would be helpful for the town to present a total plan that includes the removal of the pavilion itself, as well as the flood and resilience measures that are proposed as part of a package for review.
So we could add a sentence in the last paragraph. On behalf of all floodplain residents, FECB urges you to include these 2 necessary items in the current fiscal year 23 project work. The detailed design and construction should be in the fiscal year 24 capital budget. Fairfield cannot wait until the next storm Sandy has come and gone. We encourage you to.
I might, everything you said is good, but I might say, and again, but that Fairfield cannot, rather than wait for the next storm, cannot leave the beach neighborhoods vulnerable. I think we want to make sure that we understand that there's vulnerability and a need for this gap to be closed. So it's up to you both on that. But I just want to be as strong as we could be, because we've got to be on record for this, because I know it's a sensitive issue.
Yeah. So
Fairfield cannot improve our resiliency until the next storm Sandy has come and gone. Cannot wait to improve our resiliency.
Okay. Improve
our resiliency at the Penfield location. You want to make it specific to that?
I would say, I want to tie it to the neighborhoods, resiliency as well as, which includes protection of abutting neighborhoods. I mean, I think the town doesn't need to worry about. Yeah.
To improve our resiliency for this neighborhood.
For this abutting neighborhood, or these abutting neighborhoods. I don't know if it's a single or.
Well, I would say this neighborhood, because we somewhere up above I talk about the neighborhood or something.
Sure, no problem. I'm good with that.
Okay, so with
not only restore. Okay, other means up above in the paragraph above. Other means must be provided to not only restore but increase the resiliency to coastal flooding for the neighborhood beyond the beach. So then if in the next paragraph we're kind of reiterating that to say Fairfield cannot wait to improve our resiliency for this neighborhood until the next storm Sandy has come and gone.
Okay.
Okay. So I think with those edits, are we comfortable making a motion to approve this letter and sending this out?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to send the letter.
And I'll second it.
Okay. I would just, for discussion, I would just like to add and just point out that we are copying various people on this. It's going to Tom Bremer because he is leading this effort on behalf of the First Selectman. So we're copying the Board of Selectmen. We're copying our District 9 RTM members, John Marsilio, Director of Public Works, Bill Hurley, and Elias Gazal, who works for Bill. So it'll go to.
I think we need to include the Board of Finance in this. I had an interesting conversation with Lori today, who is the chair of the Board of Finance. She was trying to get a little bit of background information on this because she thought it might come up in their Board of Finance meeting that is later today. And
okay.
I shared some of the background with her. She had listened to our September meeting minutes to get some background, and she just wanted a little more context. And so I think they are in support of having this project be looked at as a total project, not just a rebuild project, but a rebuild and resiliency for the neighborhood project. I believe that is at least her opinion, and that may or may not come up in the Board of Finance meeting later today, but I think that will come up when it is on the agenda.
True. Let us know if that comes up.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, I will definitely let you know.
Yeah, okay, I'll add that. You want me to revise this and send it around one last time?
No, I think we've got this then. It's up to you guys.
Good.
I think that we have a
revise and send. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, good.
Yeah, let it go.
So then we got the motion and the second, and
so all in favor of proceeding, say aye.
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 Any? Okay, that is unanimous. So yes, we will go forward with that. Excellent. So the next agenda Tim is review the status of current projects, and we had a quick conversation with Bill Hurley earlier today. I took some very rough notes that probably had all sorts of typos in them, which Dick kindly sent around. So I don't know if you had
and I don't know that there's anything there that merits any detailed discussion other than to say Bill and his guys are working diligently on this, along with all the other rolls of paper that they're trying to hang on behalf of all their constituents in town. It looks like the effort to get some deep grant money for some of these studies. The time is closing out on that, and we don't know that.
I did look at the application template. It's about a 9-page application, but a lot of it has to do with, are you in an environmental justice community, and do you have these kinds of people that will be impacted by your resilience project. And so unfortunately for us, we are not an environmental justice community, and I'm not sure how much we can claim that we are doing. I mean, we certainly have some disadvantaged members of our community, and that certainly in fixed income, but unfortunately it's not specified by the state of Connecticut as an environmental justice community. But I still think it's probably worth trying to apply. It has to be done by December 1st. So I'm happy to tomorrow just take a stab at filling out as much of it as I can, and then if Bill can find the time, I mean, there's no downside to trying to apply for it. So
sure.
This is the track 2 of the Deep Climate Resilience Grant project. It's just sort of unfortunate. I mean, I think this is something we need to bring up, possibly with Brenda or some other powers that be. That while Terry, I'm sure is working hard to get some town grants. I mean, we apply for so many grants as a town that a part-time grant writer is really not enough for a town of our size. And we need to budget for more grant writing resources, and ideally, what I would call specialized grant writing resources, certainly from a floodplain management standpoint, because Terry can't write the details of a lot of these grants because they're technical in nature and they have to have specialized knowledge. So we really need to be able to hire out possibly even a race or somebody to help us write grants. Someone who can speak the language that is needed to craft, the arguments for why we should be getting this money.
I agree with that. That's a good investment. Good investment.
It's a very good investment because this is $750,000 that we're not going to get because we didn't have the resources to write a grant here.
Tim, I'll make a broad suggestion. Tim, his last name is too hard to pronounce, but left race and he works on his own. He definitely is very knowledgeable. Yeah. He could be a suggestion even to bring in as a consultant to do some of this.
And some of the grants aren't that hard. A lot of it is actually taking studies that we.
I don't know all of his activity, but he was basically their structural engineer. And I'm not aware of how deeply he may have gotten involved in the grant writing, liaison with the DEEPs of the world and so forth.
Okay.
But
that's a
conversation worth having.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
I did reach out to Dave Murphy, who also left his organization and is now doing freelance work. But unfortunately, the project I reached out to him on, he couldn't do because it was a conflict of interest with his circle work. So some things he can do and some things he can't do, but he is another resource. So there are people out there that
for sure
can do this. So I think that might be another letter we might want to recommend. What do you think?
Okay, we'll take those conversations offline over the next.
Okay.
Over the next day or two, which is or the next 2 work days until the deadline for the December 1st deadline for this current round. Realistically, nothing's going to happen much unless Becky puts something together, sends it to Bill, and Bill says, "Hey, that's good enough. I'll send this on to Deep or something."
Good.
Well, I'm happy to do that if it helps out. I mean, again, I'm not going to. He's going to need to add some of the technical pieces, but I could certainly add a lot of the. I could probably do 60 to 70% of it, and then if he has the time, it'd be a shame not to try to apply for this one.
Yeah, agree.
All right. So just quickly, Paul, just to keep you in the loop, Perry's Green is proceeding. They are looking to. They have some conceptual plans into. They basically have a conceptual idea into Deep, and their plan would be to get a conceptual plan itself to them in early December, and then hopefully get some feedback in terms of where to go from there. Rooster River Detention, they're basically having to get Army Corps of Engineers approval of projects. They seem to be the holdup here. They're taking a long time to review it, and there might be new federal forms that they need to put in. So there's a little bit of back and forth on that, but hopefully that seems to be proceeding well as well. Downtown infrastructure, SLR has done some analysis, and they submitted their recommendations to us a while back. So I think we just need to review those and then decide how to move forward on that. And then nothing has been done on the high intensity wave study. So I also offered to try to do a draft on that to Bill just to get that going, because we've got to get an RFP out for that one.
Okay.
The Circa projects, we've got 3 cost-benefit analysis projects that Circa is doing as part of a Circa grant. Those are expected to be done towards the end of April, but just in case, we got an extension to June. So hopefully that can all be done in the original timing, but if we need it, we have an extra 2 months. And the underpass study is just in the initial stages of being studied, and they're going to be doing stakeholder meetings as a next step. It looks like RACE is doing sort of a slightly expanded remit of the section along Perryville Beach Road that was from Jennings basically to Penfield, the section in front of the Beach Club. RACE has now been authorized to do that as well, and that was funded at $100,000. Okay. They're now expanding that to look at the Penfield resilience, because they're probably very similar in nature in terms of the type of resilience structures we would need. So they're doing that, and it looks like they're also doing the Jennings up to Ash Creek open space berm study, which is great if they're doing all those 3 studies, because that's a big part of our plan.
Yep.
Let's see, what else? Pine Creek dredging, he mentioned. So we have to go outside for a consultant to collect additional samples, because even though the Pine Creek group collected some samples, apparently DEEP is going to require additional samples, in Bill's opinion. So the town is going to pay for those additional samples, and then they'll proceed, and we'll see whether we have to, whether we can renew the permit or not.
Okay. And
I think that was it. The only other thing is that they've stopped work completely until they can get resources on doing the Fairfield Beach elevation study. They were just doing a survey to see if we could raise sections of the road to mitigate sunny day flooding, and right now they just don't have any resources, so it's still on the list, but it's not being actively worked on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Those are the main projects. All right. Well, since this is a special meeting, I had put on the agenda erroneously additional items that can't come before the board, but they're actually, in a special meeting, you can't have additional items unless they were on the agenda. So I'm going to skip that, and then there is obviously no public comment because it is a special meeting. So I would propose, unless there are anything that anyone has to bring up that has to do with an existing agenda item, I would propose that we adjourn the meeting.
I would like to just observe that Alyssa Israel has joined us on the line here, And as a special courtesy, since she is the only member of the public who felt it worthwhile to join, if she does have a quick comment on anything to make, that we might entertain that, because I believe it is within the purview of the chairperson to accept public comments if they wish, but it's not required.
Oh, I'm very happy to accept a public comment, Alyssa, if you would like to make one.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, Alyssa Israel, 679 Roland Road. I'm so sorry I didn't chime in until you were at the very end of your Penfield discussion. So I guess I'll read the minutes so I don't have to ask you to recap. But were there any, would it be asking too much to give a quick summary of that discussion? Or do you want me to just read the minutes?
Yeah, the basic discussion just reiterated the communication that the FBRA newsletter provided to all the members, and you are on that distribution list, I believe.
Yes. So, yep.
Okay.
I've seen all that.
If you read that, that's what we know. They're trying to clear the notice of violation from FEMA, which includes lowering the sand and lowering the grade beam. So that's what they're trying to do, and we FECB recognize that that's going to compromise any resiliency that may be there today for the neighborhood beyond. And we approved sending a letter from us to Board of Selectmen, RTM District 9, et cetera, just reiterating that fact that we believe they need to replace, not in kind, but improve the resiliency at that Penfield site for the neighborhood beyond. So it's one
Got it. So, and I chimed in when you said the Board of Finance might discuss this tonight at their meeting, or I know it's not on the agenda, but it might come up.
I think
it's on the agenda because they're reviewing the capital plans tonight. This is the quarterly review.
No, but I think it's going to be
so it is
an item in the next agenda, is what I got from Lori. Is that
the next meeting? Their next meeting.
I think they're going to do a more detailed review of the Penfield Pavilion in the next meeting. This is just a high-level review of all the capital projects, but this doesn't have the Penfield project on the capital list.
Becky?
Got it. Okay, and thank you for explaining. And this notice of violation from FEMA, is this? Are we trying to comply so we get the $4 million reimbursement? Is that the motivation for complying with FEMA?
Oh, it's actually a different one because there's very little hope, if any, of getting that $4 million. That ship is gone when we didn't comply the first time that they gave us the notice. I think really the issue is that we as a town benefit from a 10% reduction on every single person in town who has flood insurance has a 10% reduction versus what it would be if we didn't have that. And that's because the town complies with certain floodplain management standards. And so if we basically do not address the notice of violation, it puts us at risk of no longer being in compliance with what FEMA would consider, good floodplain management standards, and therefore they could and might very well and probably would pull the 10% reduction, which means every single person in town who has flood insurance would pay 10% more. Which
I see. Okay, so that's a step.
That's the reason we have to address the notice of violation, is that we don't want to put all of our homeowners who have flood insurance in position to be paying more insurance because we're not willing to address that.
Thank you for explaining. But the irony is that they're asking us to do something that's going to increase flooding in the neighborhood. So I'm not understanding what.
Well, you have to, Alyssa, you have to accept that it's necessary to put on blinders and compartmentalize actions. They are interested in the pavilion. And during that consideration, anything else that is logically associated with it has no bearing. So it's like
okay.
you have
so
to.
it's like
We're in their ballpark. We're in their ballpark, so we got to play by their rules, and that's how it's come down.
Well, there's a middleman, I guess, with I guess I would like to have you experts on your committee have a direct conversation with FEMA, that this is more of a negotiation and a discussion with them so that you can...
I don't.
No.
Okay.
That's not
I
possible.
I understand your opinion, but I don't share that opinion, and I believe this is best left to the elected administration to represent our town's interest in this matter. So.
And Melissa, if I no commentary on that.
Ahead.
I mean, we as a town did hire a consultant when we got the original notice of violation years ago. As part of the original notice, we hired. My understanding is, and I was not part of this, but my understanding is that we hired a coastal engineering consultant whose only reason we hired them was to negotiate with FEMA to try to get them, to understand the impact of what they were asking and ask them to remove the notice of violation, because we believe that this actually did comply with what FEMA conceptually wants for their towns. And we were not successful. And that person went back and forth a couple
Oh,
times, and we didn't get anywhere with FEMA. So at this point, my feeling is...
You know who that consultant was? I'm just curious to see any. I'd love to see that.
There was back and forth. There was back and forth between the town and FEMA when the notice of violation came about. There was an appeal of FEMA's decision. FEMA went through chapter and verse of why they decided that. No, you don't get to do it that way. And then there was a second appeal, which went back and forth again. Race was one of the people who provided some information for those appeals, but those appeals were written by the town. The town is the one who made the appeal. So we've gone the town administratively. The town has gone through all these steps, followed the bouncing ball, and here we are.
Wow.
So I think
that's frustrating.
What FEMA wouldn't have any say over, in my mind, although they might have to approve something at some point, is if we are to put some resiliency to protect the neighborhood behind the pavilion on the street side of Penfield. We have the right as a town to explore those options, and that is actually already in the RFQ that the town sent out, is to explore those kinds of options. And all we as Flood and Erosion are doing is trying to confirm with the town that will happen in this year's budget. So you may have missed this, but our goal would be to have that process of evaluating how to add resilience to mitigate flooding into the neighborhoods happen in this year's budget, so that this doesn't drag out for years and years and years. And I think that's what we owe the residents. This is to have that be, in essence, part of the total project, such that we not only remediate the notice of violation, but we address the fact that by remediating the notice of violation, we have decreased the resilience, and that we actively look at measures to increase and rebuild that resilience so that neighborhoods behind are not flooded. And that's a letter that we are at Flood and Erosion writing to the town. But to be fair, they did have a notification that they are exploring that in their RFQ documentation. So I know that the town is looking at it. My goal, and I think Flood and Erosion's goal, is to make sure that this isn't a 10-year plan, but this happens in this year's budget and next year's budget.
Okay, great. Well, let me know how I can support your committee, and I'll do whatever I can.
Have you written your letter? Have you written your letter as suggested by the FBRA?
I trust me, I'm going to. I just wanted to be very clear. I wanted to be clear-headed, and I thank you for this conversation, because now I have a much better understanding understanding that that I guess we just can't negotiate with FEMA. We have to do. It sounds like we're going to do what they say, and now I know why. I didn't understand why, and now you explain that to me. Thank you.
Only one comment I would make to what you said, Alyssa, is that it's not that we can't negotiate with FEMA. It's that we have exhausted all avenues of negotiating any further with FEMA.
Got it. Well, I appreciate the effort, and although when I think of trying to contain the water after it's breached the pavilion, Rick's idea and whatnot, I just of having a wall there. I don't know how you would seal it off at the driveway. I just I think it's already too late. I think the beach is the best way. Keep it from breaching the beach. Other than that, once it comes over the dune, the lower dune, now going to be even lower because of FEMA. I think we're, lack of a better word, we're screwed. I don't know. Maybe I'd love to see what your ideas are for containing the water once it breaches the beach. I don't know. I just don't know how we can.
Well, I'll just say stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Okay. Well, I'd love to see your letter first before I write mine, but if possible, also I want to support your efforts for grant writer. I agree. A part-time grant writer for the town is not enough, and I had advocated for at least a full-time person. I think the town could have 2 full-time people, but if you need me to support you in getting a consulting grant writer, I would support you in that way. I also have done grant writing, so I'm happy to help with grant writing if you like. And although I don't have the technical expertise for your for what you do, but anyway, I can edit, proofread, etc. So that's all. Is there anything else you wanted to tell me before I let you adjourn?
No, just thank you for your comments, and we appreciate you supporting, the letter campaign, if you will, just so that the town understands that this is an important thing for the neighborhoods.
I will do it the minute I get home from Vermont, and I will work on it. I with a clear mind now that I understand. Thanks to you explaining everything to me. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for your support.
And I would also note that we have been joined by Peter Wiswell, a member of the board, for the last part of it.
What are you doing with Peter? I couldn't understand.
No. Thank you, Alyssa. We're done with public comment.
Oh, okay. Peter Wiswell's a member, and he's also present. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Peter. We've not met, but thank you all, and look forward to reading your letter once it's drafted.
So, Peter, we were just doing a final public comment, and then we were proposing to adjourn. We had, just to give you some quick updates, we had gone briefly through the resilience letter that we are sending out to the Board of Selectmen and various other RTM Board of Finance people. And the one that was sent out with the minor edits was basically approved with just date changes. And then we made some very minor edits on the second letter that was sent out, that we're sending out to request the resilience measures for Penfield be put into this next year's budgets and not dragged out. So those be made as well.
I looked at
Excellent.
and been listening in. I was obviously late, but been listening in for about half an hour.
Okay.
Obviously, interesting, somewhat of a dilemma relative to the pavilion, and all the more reason to get public comment.
Yeah, I actually think that the town should hold the public comment on what their proposal is, because it's something that really impacts 15% of our housing stock potentially. That's the geography that could potentially flood in if we were to have a very, very serious storm. And I think the public needs to know what's being proposed specifically. So I hope that the town does hold some sort of public forum to make sure that everyone has a chance to input.
And especially, not to exclude any one portion of the beach, but especially by Penfield Pavilion, where you have so many houses immediately behind that potentially could be impacted. All the more reason for public comment.
Right. And I think the challenge and the issue is going to be, but we don't want to keep Penfield closed for another year, and public, this will all take too long if we open it up to public comment. But you know what? That's not a reason not to. And in an environment where the administration values transparency, they should be letting people know what is being proposed and going on and how their taxpayer dollars are being spent. So.
Oh yeah, but in fairness, Brenda has included in her newsletters, or maybe a separate thing about the Penfield circumstance. So, and I mean, I think she has to be somewhat introspective because the negotiations aren't really finished yet. So,
Yeah, and I'm just saying, once they decide what they want to do, just let people know, here's what we're doing. And then,
yes. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Becky, I would add that in the current town of Fairfield environment, on the back of the issues at our old friend Trashmore, transparency is paramount right now. You have to be discreet, but at the same time, you have to make sure that nobody can suggest that line has not been met. And I'm assuming that's what goes through Brenda's mind with the comments that Dick alluded to in her various newsletters and all. But it's something that everybody has to be mindful of.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I'm going to reopen the idea that we adjourn unless there's any other comments that people want to make.
I just wanted one last clarification, if that's okay. You mentioned a public comment. As far as you know, there's no opportunity right now for public comment on the Penfield Pavilion and resiliency?
I'm not aware of that.
You mean like a public meeting? Alyssa,
yeah,
you mean like a public meeting where everybody who's interested come to Sherman School and we'll tell you all we know, that kind of thing?
Well, or either one,
or even just
any
another
opportunity at
when it goes.
No, nothing is as far as I know, nothing is scheduled.
Okay, so that's something I would like to put in my letter, that we would like a public meeting where people can, and I would love it, all the stakeholders should be there, DEEP, FEMA, town officials.
Please don't.
Why not?
Please.
I would encourage us not to open it up for that as much as really just, I think if we're going to spend taxpayer dollars, I think the public should be informed and have a chance to provide input on how they're proposing to spend the taxpayer dollars. I think once you bring FEMA and DEEP in, now you are looking at logistical nightmares of trying to find a time when everyone can come with holiday season, and it's going to be spring, and I don't think you need them there, honestly.
Okay.
But I do.
Okay.
That's my point of view, I mean, if you, I can't tell you what to write, but my personal point of view is that what I would like to see the town do is just a very clear explanation of what the town is proposing to do, how they're going to address the resilience, and the timing that they're going to address it, and then, give a chance for people to ask questions if they don't understand it. Because it's a very complicated subject. It's not clear. I mean, it's not easy to understand exactly why. And even you said you didn't really understand why FEMA was, what the impact of not complying with a notice of violation would be. And I think people need to know that, flood insurance is at risk, and things like that, which I'm not sure have been very clearly articulated, are helpful for people to hear, I think.
It isn't it hasn't been, and I don't understand how we ignored FEMA in the past and the $4 million was lost. I never understood how that happened.
We did not ignore FEMA. We had a different opinion, and we proceeded with that opinion upon advice of our consultant, Whit O'Brien. So don't go. I mean, don't. It's untrue and unfair to say things like the town ignored FEMA. Don't do it. My personal counsel.
Dick, no, Dick, you're not being fair to me. I'm sorry. Because I do not have an understanding, and I deserve to have an understanding why our town didn't do things to receive the reimbursement. I don't understand why, and so if you want to explain that to me at another time, that's fine. So I have a right to know that.
At another time. Yep.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Becky and Dick and Peter, thank you for your time, and I'll let you adjourn.
Okay. Any
Becky,
other comments?
One other point. Dick commented a little while ago that, if I understood him correctly, it's for our elected officials and town employees to be the primary interface with the various government agencies. Which
that's my personal belief. I can't cite a statute that says that, but
no, Dick, I entirely agree with you. It is incumbent on the town to do their best to explain to the residents of Fairfield why things are happening. But when it comes to the interface with DEEP, FEMA, and the others, I absolutely agree with you, Dick, that we are really looking for more trouble than it's worth, opening that to the world. But that's not to say that the residents should not be given an opportunity to ask those questions of our town officials, who are technically very competent and should be able to address them in relatively short order. And as you said, Dick, that's just my view.
Okay.
Okay.
Becky, you can adjourn now.
Are there any other comments before I make a motion to adjourn? All right. Hearing none. Thank you all for coming for this special meeting. I appreciate your time today and appreciate you carving out this time out of your schedules. So I'm now adjourning the meeting of the Flood and Erosion Control Board, September 22. Thank you very much.